afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. Andrew Berry met with the media, the pre-draft meeting. Many analysts, fans connecting the dots with the signing of Joe Flacco, saying that that likely means the Browns are out of the idea of drafting a quarterback at number 2. General Manager Andrew Berry asked that today at his pre-draft meeting.
We wouldn't consider signing Joe as having any real impact in terms of how we would view taking a quarterback in the draft. We firmly believe that it's not about picking a player who's, ready to contribute now. It's about trying to find the player that you think is going to be the best if you have access to that player. And look, I think you can think about Patrick Mahomes had his whole first year. Josh Allen, it really took to year 3 for him to become Josh Allen. Lamar probably hit the ground running pretty quickly. Jalen Hurts, there were doubts about him until he probably hit year 3. So quarterbacks mature and grow at their own pace, and our thought isn't in terms of immediacy, but making the next long-term bet.
So we will talk plenty about quarterback coming up a little bit later in the show. Many of the national experts and local experts as well feel that Andrew Berry and the Browns fell in love with Travis Hunter at his pro day workout in Colorado. Here's what Berry had to say about Hunter today.
You can't probably fully appreciate until you actually see Travis play live is just his elite conditioning. Going out and seeing him play at Colorado, he really never comes off the field, and it's unbelievable because there are more plays in a college game than there is a pro game, and it's like the guy he barely pants like that, like that type of thing. So it's quite incredible. That being said, what he would attempt to do has not been really done in our league. But we wouldn't necessarily put a cap or a governor in terms of what he could do. We would want to be smart in terms of how we started him out. I think I've mentioned before, we would see his first home as receiver and his second home, on the defense side of the ball.
We'll talk plenty more about Travis Hunter as well. Concern I have isn't, the conditioning. It's taking the repeated pounding that an NFL game gives. And Andrew Berry was asked about that. We'll have that a little bit later in the show. NFL.com draft analyst Daniel Jeremiah on this year's draft class and the idea of drafting for need.
I've just kind of used the analogy of hey, you got to do your shopping at the hardware store before you go to the toy store. Detroit built up the line of scrimmage. Mm-hmm. They had the offensive line. They had the key positions. They had the edge rusher on the defensive side of the ball. All the marquee guys, all the marquee spots filled. Okay, now you can drop the running back in and do it with a high resource, and I have no problem with that whatsoever. When you get in trouble is if you get the cart before the horse, knowing these running backs only have, most of them a 6-year, 7-year max prime, and you've wasted 3 years on bad teams of those carries. I want all of your carries to matter once I start the clock on the running back. So that's kind of been my philosophy there. But Genty as a player, he's my 3rd player in this draft. And I've talked to teams and kind of said, this kind of sums up this draft. It's a little different than years past. 3 of my top 7 players are 2 tight ends and a running back. So at some point in time, it's I get positional value. I would love to throw a bunch of tackles up there and a bunch of proven edge rushers and quarterbacks and stack those guys up at premium positions. They're not in this draft. And I think you make big mistakes when you pass on a great player at a lesser position to take somebody just to fill a need. I think that's when you mess up, man.
Quincy Carrier, Jake Burns, and Tim Bielik all will be on the show to talk Browns a little bit later. Cavs still waiting to see who they will play in that first round of the playoffs. That final play-in game for the 8th spot is tomorrow, Friday. Kendrick Perkins, former NBA player, what he expects from the Cavs in the upcoming playoffs.
I'm giving them a chance to make it to the conference finals. What I've been leaning on. Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland got to show me defensively. They got to show me because they're going to get picked on. And just like Steph Curry, it took Steph Curry. Think about this and think about this. It took Steph Curry to his 4th championship for him actually to buckle down and defend. like put on muscle. And when they had that series against the Celtics, they were trying to exploit Steph. They were trying to post up Al Horford on them. Steph Curry down there holding his damn ground, not giving up, nothing, getting stops. And I was like, oh, yeah, he won it. I don't know if Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland got that in them. And you're going to have that in you, because every single person on the Boston Celtics in the starting five, and then the six, including Al Horford, could do what they say, could take your ass to that low block.
And again, we'll see. Got to get there first before you worry about the Celtics. Guardians and Orioles opened up a series yesterday. It was Gavin Williams on the mound, and Gavin Williams got himself into trouble in the second. A couple of walks, bases loaded. Jackson Holliday, deep to left center, and that one is gone. A grand slam gives the Orioles 4-0 lead in the second. Third inning, Guardians got one back. Gabriel Arias hits one, and this one just keeps going. That one, a lot of carry to center field. A solo home run made it 4-1. Stayed that way until the seventh inning. Ramon Laureano, former Guardian, high, deep, and gone. He's kept that one fair to left. 5-1 Guardians trail, and then in the eighth, Orioles added another, Ryan O'Hearn, a home run, and that made it 6-1. Eighth inning, Heston Kjerstad, RBI single. It made it 8-1, and the Orioles win it 9-1. Same two teams going at it. Tanner Bybee gets the ball as the Guardians will try to win that series as they split the first two games. Bybee will get the start tonight in Baltimore. Time for a quick timeout. Other side of the break, Quincy Carrier is up. We'll hear more from Andrew Berry. We're talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We begin by talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. More from General Manager Andrew Berry of the Browns. Asked a lot of questions about Travis Hunter, who many have linked to the Browns with that second overall pick in this upcoming draft.
He has a number of rare qualities, but probably the rarest is his ability with the ball, his ball skills. And, we would want to put him in a position that maximizes that ability.
Andrew, with Travis, two questions on it. First of all, would you be concerned about the pounding, like the physical pounding, not the aerobic part, but, the taking the hits on both sides of the ball, if he played on both sides for you?
Yeah, I think anytime a player across positions plays more snaps, there certainly is more of that risk. That being said, playing on the perimeter positions, there's maybe a little bit less contact than there would be as you get closer to the ball. But it's something that, look, 32 teams are would have to figure that out as they think through his profile, and there would be some probably learning on the fly if he were here.
He has to play on both sides to be worth that number 2 pick, because that's kind of how he's viewed, as a guy that can do both versus just is one side or the other.
No, I don't see it that way. I think it's, and I'm going to use a crossboard now. It's a little bit like Ohtani, right? Where when he's playing one side, he's an outstanding player. If he's a pitcher, he's a hitter, he's an outstanding player. You obviously get a unicorn if you use them both ways.
So welcome in Quincy Carrier, Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Quincy, whenever I hear Ohtani, I do have to point out he had Tommy John surgery, so he can't pitch. He broke down. Having said that, Travis Hunter, is he the best football player available?
Yeah, I think one thing with the Ohtani thing is I think you get more wear and tear out these guys when they come out of Japan, right? Because there's more of a professional league there. But with Travis, yeah, he's the best football player in this draft class, right? Like we can argue about if it makes sense to play him both ways or everything else like that. But if we're just measuring somebody on their ability to impact your football team, Travis Hunter has that, and he doesn't have to throw the football, right, Dave? He's a corner and a wide receiver, which means he's not playing these high wear and tear positions. Like if he was a running back and linebacker or a edge and a left tackle, then I think some of the durability stuff would be a lot more prohibiting. But corner and wide receiver, he's not asked to throw the football, right? So he's not going to wear his shoulder out. It's just really playing boundary positions. And then when you watch him on tape, the one thing I think Travis is really good at is maximizing his body control to avoid taking these giant hits, even when he's in the middle of the field. It's almost Lamar Jackson-like, where Lamar's really good at manipulating his body to where you never see him get hit squared. The only time he ever got hit square was with that player from Colorado State, and that was a late illegal hit, like an egregious one. So outside of a situation like that, he does a really good job of avoiding taking that wear and tear, which is a skill set that I don't think we evaluate enough when it comes to football players.
What about trading back from 2? Good idea, bad idea? Would you do it? Wouldn't you do it?
I am anti-trade back from 2. I am not a big fan of it. I like Abdul Carter. I like Travis Hunter. I think those 2 prospects are a clear cut above every other player in this draft class, right? And when you got a chance to take one of those guys, you take one of those guys. I've seen too many trade backs from the Cleveland Browns with not enough return to be a fan of trading back here at 2. This team needs to add another star, like a Denzel Ward, like a Myles Garrett. And it's no mistake that you didn't get Denzel Ward by trading back a million times, right? You took him at 5. You didn't get Myles Garrett by moving back in the draft and trying to get value, right? You got Myles Garrett by taking him number 1 overall. You get the reward in the draft by get rewarded by the NFL for losing in the draft because they want you to take the best players possible because that's what's going to make you better. Just take the best player possible at 2, especially in the year where there are 2 excellent selections right in front of your face.
What do you hope the Browns do in this draft?
Just really, if they come out this class and they get some starters and a all-pro caliber player, it's a really good year. Right. And I think that's what you want to see this class bring out. The specifics of that, I don't know how that's going to look. Right. Do you want them to get running back? Yeah, because this is a running back heavy class. Seems like a golden opportunity to grab a running back. Would I be thrilled if they somehow got out this class with Travis Hunter and a quarterback? Absolutely. Who wouldn't be thrilled about that? I mean, that's a franchise-changing, successful draft if you're able to hit there. But really, you just want to make sure that the guy you take at 2, you put him in a position to be that all-pro caliber player that you think he could be on track to be in the future. And if you maximize that and you get some starters in the back end, then people are going to look at this draft as a unrivaled success.
So Mike Florio, NBC's Pro Football Talk, on the questions about Nick Chubb, after the injuries and what he went through last year.
Nick Chubb is still a free agent. He recently posted something on social media about how he's being written off. Look, the problem is he's been around for a while. He had that horrible knee injury, and it was a great comeback by him last year.
Yes.
To be able to return and play. But, this is one of the problems. When you're a running back that has made high-end money in your career, and the window has closed on that kind of earning potential, are you going to just take whatever you can get? I don't know that he's putting in all this work to come back and take the league minimum. And I think part of the problem is you just have to come to the conclusion that it's just not going to be there the way that it used to be. And you have to ask yourself, are you willing to go out there and play through all of it? All right. Let's focus now.
He's just squatting 600 pounds for reps there.
I think he's good to go. I think he's good to go. But here's the problem.
But that's not running on a field and cutting.
There are so many guys every year in the draft pool who can come out and squat 600 pounds and they've got full tread on the tires, and they've never had a serious knee injury,
It's a
and their
good
salary
class,
expectations
Mike.
are low,
Yeah.
and you just go get one of those guys, and they become the Nick Chubb of the future.
Right.
That's what happens.
Yeah, that's unfortunate and it's a deep class. There's a lot of damn good running backs to have.
So, Quincy, how important is it for the Browns to sign Nick Chubb? And I don't think he's looking for a big payday. I really don't. That's not the sense I get.
Yeah, you can bring back Nick Chubb and still draft for the future at the running back position. These aren't mutually exclusive things here that the Cleveland Browns have to consider. But, yeah, I hope they bring back Nick Chubb. I think it's important because I think Nick Chubb has demonstrated over the last few years that this is somebody who cares about building the program that is the Cleveland Browns, right? And if you want to build a culture up, you need to make sure that you reward those who truly do want to be there, and show faith in those who really want to be there in order to kind of incentivize buying in on your team. And right now you need as much of that as possible after coming off a 3-win season. Like, yeah, you got your guys like David Njoku, Denzel Ward. We'll see what Miles is ready to contribute to all of this after the contract situation. But still, somebody like Nick Chubb, I mean, it adds incredible value because not only does he have the buy-in factor, but he has the clout. Like, people are going to come in and look at Nick Chubb and say, man, I used to watch that guy when I was like, in high school or in middle school, right? On whatever running back you bring in. And if you want that guy to buy into the culture, I mean, if he's in that room with Nick Chubb, that's going to make him better. That's going to make that player buy in even more. So, that's all to say just what he brings value for your locker room. That doesn't mean that Nick Chubb's not going to provide value as a player himself, too. I think he's going to be able to get back to a point to where he provides value. And to kind of push back on Mike's point about, there's always another Nick Chubb. No, there's not. What are you talking about? There's a reason why we're talking about Nick Chubb the way we talk about him, because there wasn't always a dude like Nick Chubb. This is somebody who's the best pure runner in football just a year or two ago, right? So, no, Nick Chubbs don't grow on trees, and I don't love that people are trying to group him into this running back tier of guys who aren't special. I look at him like a Derrick Henry, like a Saquon Barkley, and look, if you want to sleep on that guy, be my guest, but I would love to see what he looks like a year removed from that injury.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We will continue talking Browns. We'll hear more from Andrew Berry, talking some quarterbacks. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hey, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million? New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. All for just
$5?
Let's go!
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier from Untitled Unfiltered Browns Coverage. General Manager Andrew Berry, his thoughts on drafting and developing young quarterbacks.
A lot of the quarterback position is, the environment that you put the individual in. Whether that's with teammates, schematically, what you ask them to do, and honestly, what you ask them to do early in their career. And I think you're starting to see it more and more across the league that quarterbacks can produce in a number of different ways. The way that Josh Allen produces is a lot different than the way that Brock Purdy produces. The way that the system that Tua runs is a lot different than the system that Lamar Jackson runs. And, I think it's of great importance for any organization bringing in a quarterback to understanding what that individual does well and how you both build an offense and design a scheme to accentuate that individual strength. Because I think as long as they have a level of baseline talent, you can have a productive player at the position as long as you're thoughtful in terms of building the environment around them.
So, Quincy, I guess the question is there a quarterback worth drafting in this year's draft class, do you think?
I think it depends on where you're picking. The value might make more sense depending on who's there. It depends on what you feel like in that organization about your in-person visits with this person, right? Like a lot of the quarterback evaluation stuff, you can go off tape, and tape is really helpful, but you don't know what that player was being asked to do. I think Dak Prescott's a perfect example of a guy, you watch him in college and you're like, okay, this isn't going to be very useful in the NFL. But then he gets to the Cowboys and he looks like a completely different guy because he just wasn't used that way, right? And you kind of discover that in your process of interviewing these guys and seeing, what else are they capable of doing, instead of just looking at them through the box of what they have done in the NFL. So, yeah, I think, drafting a quarterback makes a lot of sense in this year's draft if you're the Browns, but it's about where. And once you decide where you're taking that quarterback, how much time are you willing to give this as a project, and how much are you willing to commit to it?
All right, we'll get back to the quarterbacks in the draft in a minute. Let's talk about the guys they have brought in. Do you think Joe Flacco is a big enough upgrade, and what do you think they're planning on doing with Kenny Pickett?
So with Joe Flacco, I do think it's a fine upgrade. The problem with Joe is I don't know if he's going to be able to play 17 games. He hasn't done this since 2017, right? Since before Lamar Jackson was on the Baltimore Ravens last time he's done it. Now you can say, well, part of that is happenstance, right? He just got benched that year. Well, he was brought in to be the starter in Denver, never finished the season out there as the starter, right? Was brought in potentially to win a quarterback competition with Anthony Richardson, did not play the majority of the games, ended up putting Anthony Richardson back out there. He has not played 17 games in a very long time, and part of it is because he's just it does not seem like he's capable of doing it, because he's getting older. He's 40, right? Like he might be able to put together a couple of good games or a good month or two, but the 17-game part of that equation is where I start to get concerned with Joe. But he's going to put together games, and I would predict in that 8-game sample that he's likely to play, he's going to put together 2 games that are like massively better than anything we saw last year.
What about Pickett? How does he figure into all that, you think?
Well, if you're bringing in Joe, right, and there's real concern about if he can play 17 games, then Kenny Pickett becomes a factor to play. Now, will he play the rest of the other part of the season that Joe doesn't? No, right? I think it depends on if the Browns take a quarterback. Let's live in a world where they take Jalen Milroe, right? And they say to themselves, hey, we need to give Jalen Milroe 10 weeks. And Joe Flacco goes out there, he gives you 8 weeks of football before you have to bench him or he gets hurt or something happens, right? Then I think that's Kenny Pickett's purpose, is to fill in the gap of those 2 weeks and just hold it down until you transition or pass the torch. If you don't draft the quarterback high enough to justify playing them in year 1, then it's probably going to be Kenny Pickett the rest of the way. But he's going to have to fill in that space between Joe Flacco and whoever that next guy is. And I think that's what Kenny Pickett's role is. However long that gap is, really depends on what they do in the draft.
So Andrew Berry asked about quarterbacks after that first round, in theory, or late first round, if you want to say it that way. Specifically, Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart.
They're both excellent players. I think Jalen, he's got rare physical talent. He may be the only when he gets in the NFL, he may be the only quarterback who's faster than Lamar. Don't tell Lamar I said that, please. He's got rare physical gifts. He's strong, he's fast, he's got a really strong arm. And any system that you build around him, you want to take advantage of the fact that he has things that no other players at the position have. Jackson, he's very well rounded. He can run it, he can throw it, he's accurate. He's a good decision maker. I'd say he's pretty scheme versatile, so to speak. So look, I think both those guys in the proper situation can be really good NFL players.
With Jalen Milroe, how much would having Tommy in the building helps with that evaluation and dealing with him?
It helps a lot. To have ROC having been at Alabama with him for a full year, calling plays for him, knowing his strengths and weaknesses, it helps a lot.
So Quincy, the question is, does Jalen Milroe fit quote unquote Kevin Stefanski's offense?
It's an interesting thing, right? Because Kevin wants to get back to more familiar principles. I think that's not been hidden by this organization. But you also can't just go back to the past and expect it to work. You have to evolve it, right? And when you look at Kevin's offense and you look at what Kevin wants to make happen with the quarterback position, a lot of that offense is about being able to have gravity or pull versus other teams' linebackers, right? It's about manipulating the linebackers to create space in gaps in the middle of the field or in cover two. And nothing makes that a lot easier more than a quarterback who can run, right? And I think that is the appeal to the Cleveland Browns with Jalen Milroe. Milroe also, he played with Tommy Rees, right? Like nobody's a better fit for a Tommy Rees coached offense than the guy who's already played in the offense and had tremendous success. They almost beat Michigan and would have presumably won the national championship game. And so very good fit there with what Tommy Rees likes to do. You watch him on tape, he goes through his progressions really well. He likes to be on time, right? He's not an out of structure player, and we know with the Browns, they love guys who can play in structure. So, yeah, I think, it might be easy to convince yourself that he's not a good fit just when you think of Milroe and all the running and you think he's an RPO guy. But he's really not. What he is somebody who wants to work in structure, wants to be on time, needs to work on his anticipation and accuracy, but certainly wants to be the type of quarterback naturally that Kevin wants at the position, or at least has had success with. It just looks a lot different because instead of Joe Flacco, Case Keenum, and Kirk Cousins, it's a dude who can run 4.3, right? Like that's what makes it look way different. But I don't think it's really that different from the mode of what he's been successful with.
When you hear Andrew Berry talking, I kind of get the feeling that it's going to be Travis Hunter and Jalen Milroe in some form or fashion. Did you get that sense?
You can tell he lit up talking about those two, right? Like he compared one to Shohei, who is arguably the best player in baseball, and the other one to Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and Jalen Hurts. There was a Jalen Hurts thing.
Yeah.
So those are two guys that, the quarterback position is evolving just in that way, in that manner.
Yeah, and I think that's what they want going forward. And you get all the intangible stuff with Jalen Milroe too, right? People love his work ethic, everything else with him that comes with committing to a guy at quarterback. I think they like him, right? Now the question is, how much do other teams like Jalen Milroe? Because, a dude who can throw as well as he can, run as well as he can, and seems to have the intangibles. I feel like teams are going to value that a lot more than maybe what we see from the outside looking in. So, it's going to be interesting to see what Milroe's value is like. My hot take is if there's somebody who's going to have a Michael Penix-like jump this year, it's probably him.
That's absolutely fair. You hear about the work ethic, his leadership, anything that you're questioning, everybody seems to think he's got it. So I get it. It'll be curious to see where he goes. Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more timeout. Other side of the break, we continue talking Browns. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier, Untitled, Unfiltered Browns coverage. Chris Sims, former NFL quarterback, on what he thinks the Browns can't leave this draft without getting.
Obviously, they got an eye on receiver and need something there, right? So, Jerry Jeudy, good, really good. I think in the perfect world, I want Jerry Jeudy to kind of be my number 2. That's how I kind of look at it, and be an awesome number 2 at that. They do have a Cedric Tillman there, but that's why I think they're talking about Travis Hunter. That's why we heard Andrew Berry talk about, hey, we like Travis Hunter as a wide receiver, so let's take that out of the equation here a little bit. I think there's 2 other ones that jump out to me. Defensive tackle, I think, is the number 1 thing there. I mean, right now, they're with kind of career journeymen Shelby Harris and Malik Collins as their starting D tackle. I would think you'd want to get younger and better in the future. So I could see them going D tackle at 33, depending on how the draft shakes out. The other one I think you'll probably see is obvious, too, is they need a running back somewhere.
Yes.
They only got 2 RBs on the roster,
Jerome
right?
Ford is the starter right now.
Right. So they need, and when they still got a good O-line. Kevin Stefanski believes in running the football. It's Pierre Strong Jr. and Jerome Ford, who you just mentioned. I look at those 2 positions to be the ones that they got to address.
So, Quincy, they did take a defensive tackle named Mike Hall Jr., he's kind of banged up. They took him really high last year. But anyway, I digress. They need receivers. I wouldn't argue that. I don't argue the other positions. What does the 2025 receiver class look like here?
It's a strong role player class at wide receiver, but I don't know if it's a strong playmaker class at wide receiver. And I don't know if that's the best fit for the Browns to be searching for a wide receiver in the later parts of this draft, because they don't really need young role player type wide receivers. They've filled this offense up with a ton of those kind of prospects. If they get a role player at wide receiver, I would rather that guy be a veteran, to be honest, because this wide receiver room's also super young. I don't think it's the wide receiver class we were hoping it be for the Cleveland Browns at the end of the season. It's more along the lines of it's probably going to help a team with some veteran wide receivers.
So I know you've addressed this on your show as well. What's one thing that you hope the Browns do not do in the upcoming NFL draft?
Don't talk yourself out of just what's in front of you, right? Like, take the bird in hand. If somebody offers you $1 million or a high credit score, take the $1 million. Figure out everything else, right? Don't take the unlimited potential that you might be able to scratch, you might not. If you value players and you think that their potential, but also their ability to reach that potential is high, then cool, I have no problem with it. But don't try to get cute here, right? It's 4th and 1. It's 4th and inches on the goal line, Dave. All you got to do is sneak the ball into the end zone, right? This is not the time for end around, double reverse, fake pass, throw to the back of the end zone that is like a multi-tier trade back. This is just not the time for it. Just get somebody big in there and sneak the pick in, and boom, get the end zone. It's right in front of you, right? Avoid the urge to get cute that happens around the draft because you want to draft so many players. Just take the good players that are in front of you. Don't overcomplicate this, right? The Browns have enough talent to be a good football team, but they just need more good young players. Where they come, what positions they come in, I think is less relevant than just getting good players. Just draft the good players that are there. If you're able to do that, you'll make up for not having a bunch of first-round picks over the last few years, and you'll add more talent to this team. Hopefully Pro Bowl talent. But that's really it, right? This is a keep it simple year in the draft.
So when you look at the draft, do they have the ability to improve how athletic they are relative to the rest of the AFC North, do you think?
Yes. They have a massive opportunity to do that. I mean, you take Travis Hunter, that's just adding just gobs of athleticism on both sides of the ball. Let's say they bring in like Jalen Milroe, right? And they don't even play him at quarterback to start. They just let him come in on some athletic packages. It's like, yeah, you can add a ton of athleticism there. There's all kind of athleticism available. Jadon Blue, right, ran a 4.25 at Texas's pro day. Travion Henderson, everybody who watches football in Ohio is familiar with the type of athleticism that young man brings to the table. Byshul Tootin, right? There's so many just top tier athletes that you can get at different levels and different rounds of this draft, you have a golden opportunity in the first 2 days to add just tons of athleticism to this team that they need, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, never going to say you're lacking in athleticism when you employ Myles Garrett, but offensively, you know, they need that level of athletic uptick in big playability, and I think you add a ton of it, or can potentially add a ton of it in this year's draft.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly. All right, Andrew Berry. Before we let you go, Andrew Berry was asked about JOK. Here's what he had to say.
Again, you know, JOK's timeline, I think I mentioned the last time, it is a bit nebulous. He is progressing. You know, but again, right now I don't have necessarily like a definitive date for you, Jeff.
And again, so it's been pretty consistent. Progressing, but you really can't pinpoint how much he's progressing.
Seems like one of those injuries, like most injuries, right? You get a 2-week timetable, 3-week timetable, 2-year timetable, whatever it is, right? We know what those timetables look like. Some injuries, as Andrew Berry has used the word descriptor multiple times, are more nebulous, right? It's a little bit more difficult to figure out when that thing's going to heal. I don't know what it is that they're waiting to see heals, but it clearly seems like it's one of those things that does not have that clear timetable, that, you know, does not trigger to heal itself as automatically as other parts in our body. And I think that's what they're waiting with JOK with this. And, you know, I just think it's important to keep an open mind, not come to too many conclusions, and just see where the process takes us with this JOK thing, because I don't think they know, and I don't think JOK knows. I don't think anybody knows. He could play week 1. For all we know, he could play maybe week 1 next year. Like, I have no idea where this is going, and I think that's important to keep in mind. And there's even experts aren't sure about what's going to happen with JOK one way or the other.
Yeah, again, just hope he's back on the field and doing what he wants to do, without question. Quincy Carrier, is always great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
Thank you.
Quincy Carrier, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff, untitled, unfiltered Browns coverage. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Straight ahead, we continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE.
Hey, you know, the new Mega Millions is coming through any minute now.
It's here.
Bigger jackpots.
50 million?
50 million? New multiplier included.
Better odds?
Bigger wins. All for just
$5?
Let's go!
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Andrew Berry, during his pre-draft availability today, was asked about how they evaluate the quarterbacks and how much into the future they do that.
We do, you know, particularly with quarterback, we do look at those classes 2 years at a time as opposed to 1 year at a time. So it is something that we think about, but there's also a lot that changes from year to year. So it's not like that can necessarily be set in stone. You know, players take a step forward in their growth, some take a step back, and some come out of nowhere. So you can't necessarily use that as a hard and fast rule, but it is something that we like to have, you know, we like to think about in the background.
Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Tim, I play that because people that think it's as simple as, well, don't play well and go get Arch Manning. There's a pretty good chance that Arch Manning is going to go back and play another season of college football, because that's kind of what the Mannings do. and he hasn't taken a dime of NIL money because he's the backup. So don't assume Arch Manning's going to be up. He's going to be the number 1 pick in next year's draft.
Yeah, and I just want to say about the Arch Manning stuff, I get that he's an elite prospect. I want to see him play more than 2 or 3 games before I get super duper hyped about him. Like, the hype is amazing. I'm sure the talent is incredible. I need to see him out there. I need him to actually go out there and make things happen on a football field before I'm ready to, you know, anoint him right in this quarterback class. This upcoming quarterback class for 2027, which is already looking pretty pretty darn good right now with DJ Lagway and Dylan Raiola, among others, really impressing in their first seasons. But yeah, what Andrew Berry said about this class is about looking ahead to 2026 is interesting because we can go back a year ago looking at 2025. There was talk about Shadur Sanders and Carson Beck kind of competing for QB1 in this class, and Carson Beck stayed in school, went to Miami because his 2024 didn't go well, and he has an elbow injury that kept him out of Georgia's playoff game. And then you look at the rest of the class. Quinn Ewers took a big step backwards. Jalen Milroe didn't take the step forward I think we all thought he was going to. Drew Aller, even though there were overtures heading towards the playoff that if he had a good playoff he could enter the draft as well, but he didn't end his season well. He didn't play well in that Orange Bowl against Notre Dame, and he's still in school for another season. And then you also have Cam Ward, who's kind of a relative unknown, jumping all the way out to pretty much be the guy where if he doesn't go number one to the Titans, it would be an absolute shocker. So you can have names down as far as quarterbacks in 2026, but we need to see them play some games in the fall. We need to see how they handle the draft cycle spotlight and who shines bright in it and who kind of fades away in that pressure.
So this is from The Athletic. They played NFL QB matchmaker for this year's group. Cam Ward, they have going to the Titans. They have Shadur Sanders going to the Saints. Jackson Dart to the Seahawks. Tyler Shuck to the Browns. Jalen Milroe to the Rams. He has a flexible yet explosive release that works well from all platforms in and out of the pocket, though he's more of a straight-line thrower than someone with fantastic touch. Still gets the job done from an accuracy perspective. Similar to Ryan Tannehill, he can be a hair slow coming off reads early in the downs, but generally doesn't make bizarre mistakes and protects the ball well. That's what they say about Shuck. I don't see it with Shuck. That would be against some of the, and Andrew Berry again was, nothing is hard and fast. It isn't, they don't make exceptions. An older quarterback with an injury history, I just don't see the upside to that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say of those three quarterbacks, Jackson Dart, Tyler Shuck, and Jalen Milroe, I'm kind of in the middle with Tyler Shuck. I see, the good and the bad with Tyler Shuck, and I think he's got a lot of intriguing tools. Big, mobile, the arm is great, kind of has a gunslinger mentality for good and bad, both good and bad. I'm not as concerned about the injury history because I just feel like with quarterbacks, and this has been burned in my head since 2023 when Booger McFarland talked about Bryce Young and, smaller quarterbacks, basically saying every quarterback is going to get injured. And at some point in their careers, they're going to have an injury. It's just the nature of the position because quarterbacks just get hit after the ball is thrown so many times. There's only so much you can do to protect the quarterback. So that's why I'm not as concerned about the injury history, maybe more the limited reps over, the course of his career and being an older prospect that kind of naturally limits the ceiling. But, of those three guys, Shuck really, I think, would be the one that I think is the most likely not to go in the first round just because of the age factor.
All right. I know you're an article. I'm curious. Statistics that can help find star running backs. Take us through that, what it is, and how accurate it's been.
Well, the term that I'm going to use a lot, if you heard me on the last Orange and Brown Talk podcast talking about running backs, there's a term out there called explosive run rate. And what it is, it's basically how often a guy gets 10 or more yards a carry. Because I think as much as, people want to talk about how you want they want the home run hitter at running back, the 70-yard touchdown run, the 80-yard run. The reality is you maybe get a couple of those a season for even the best running backs. The really good ones are the ones that can crank out yardage, extra yardage, 10 to 12 yards, even a couple times a game, because anytime you can eliminate a couple downs on a drive, you could shorten drives by getting bigger gains. That just makes your offensive life easier. And with explosive run rate, what I did was went through the PFF database. It goes as far back as I believe the 2014 season of college football. Just took a bunch of notable guys, final college season, took their total number of carries and the number of carries that they got 40 yards, 10 yards or more, you divide them up and you get this number. Not exactly a guarantee of success because, I mean, at the top end, you have Boston Scott in 2018, in the 2018 draft, explosive run rate the best of anybody is able to find, about 27.4%. And he's not a great back. He's certainly a solid back. But then number 2, Todd Gurley at 26.02%, drafted in 2015. Injury shortened his career, but we kind of forget how great he really was in 2015. And the biggest thing that this helps with is late round running backs. Guys you find on day 3. And the best examples I can give you come out of last year's class. For example, Bucky Irving, who led all rookie running backs in rushing yards. He was the only rookie to have 1,000+ yards last season. Explosive run rate of 18.28%. So that basically one of every 6 times or so he got the football in his final year at Oregon, gained 10 yards. That's sensational. And that actually is a better number, looking at my numbers, than what Damian Harris had in 2019 at 18.12, Devon Achane in his final season, and just a bunch of other guys. So, and you can see based on that explosive data, even though Irving didn't test very well, he was still able to produce at a high level. And then the other one, Tyrone Tracy Jr. from Purdue, second among running backs in yards. He had fewer rushing yards than Jane Daniels, was still pretty good. Explosive run rate. He had only 114 carries last season, but 25 of those went for 10 or more yards. So that's a rate of 21.93%. That's better than, guys like Sony Michel, Tony Pollard, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb. So many great running backs. And Tyrone Tracy is more explosive than those guys. And even as a later pick, he was still incredibly productive. So if you're looking for running backs, especially in a deep running back draft, you want to look for those guys that are able to get those 10+ yards, because that's often a pretty good indicator of NFL success.
So who are the guys this year that track high?
Well, we've got Travion Henderson at the top of the list, 25.52% explosive rate. I mean, obviously he could probably sneak in the first round, so maybe not the best example because he's probably going to go early, but still just outstanding season. Only 145 carries for Henderson, but 37 of those went for 10 or more yards last season. Then next on that list, UCF's RJ Harvey Jr., 23.38%. So he had 54 carries for 10 or more yards. Older guy, but still I think he could sneak in that day 2 range. And one of the guys I had as a sleeper, and it seems like he's not a sleeper, Dane Brugler thinks he could sneak in the day 2 based on his grade on him. Jarquez Hunter from Auburn, 22.58%. Just this guy is nothing short of a pure power back. I mean, he's a power back through and through, not afraid to run through. You may not be as creative getting to the second level, but just a guy who's just going to barrel his way through defenders. I think for the Browns, certainly he's a guy I like because he just brings a physical dimension that you don't have. And some other guys notable: Caleb Johnson, 17.92%, Ashton Genty, 16.8%, Devin O'Neal, 16.06%, Cam Scatteraboo, my guy, 15.31%. And certainly, none of these ranges say a guy's definitely going to be better than somebody else, but I think it shows that if you want to be a good running back, you have to be able to create for yourself. And in a way, explosive run rate is a way of showing how running backs can create for themselves.
Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight next week, draft week. So I'm sure we will talk to you then. Thanks very much, Tim.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, guys. Have a good day.
Tim Bielik, make sure you check him out. Always good stuff for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Jake Burns from brownsfilmbreakdown.com. Straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome in Jake Burns from brownsfilmbreakdown.com. And Jake, I know you've done a comparison on brownsfilmbreakdown.com. The Joe Flacco Colts version, the Browns version of Joe Flacco. What did you see, and what should people expect from Joe Flacco?
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty. I mean, I was interested in that kind of parallel look because a lot of what Joe did in his Cleveland run there, that last 6 games, was different stylistically than what Shane Steichen does with the Colts. So I really wanted to see if, like, was there any part of how Steichen operates that offense, very shotgun dense, a lot more RPO variations, a lot of quick throwing, and then some real downfield opportunistic shot throws. So I was interested in what that would look like. And to nobody's surprise, with the 39-year-old, nearly now 40-year-old quarterback, is pretty similar. A lot of great throws where he sits in, processes it, and is able to deliver an downfield throw with quality accuracy. He tries to throw into tight windows, but there are also times where he shies away from pressure because he doesn't want to get hit, and that causes a chain reaction to kind of the mechanics, and that can cause a football to sail a little bit high or obviously a little behind somebody. And there are a couple mysteries too. So it's going to be the same guy. I mean, he had 11 big time throws, which are those throws that are deemed to be really difficult, and you made a quality throw. And then he had 11 turnover worthy plays that run in Cleveland. He had the same number of turnover worthy plays last year with the Colts, but he only had 8 big time throws. So I think that what he does is brings a different portion of the field unlocked than Kenny Pickett. He's willing to attack in between the hashes more often. He's willing to layer in between the first and second levels more than Kenny is. That stuff is all true, but he is a little more loose with the football, takes a few more sacks, some things that you don't necessarily love there. So I think it's going to be give and take. I do think he's fit more for the offense that Kevin ran with him, and I think that'll kind of reel in some of his issues. I think it'll be better. But like Joe has mentioned, I don't think he has an expectation to start. He's going to have to go play well and earn that. I think he's been clear, and the Browns have been clear that they might also end up drafting somebody relevant too. So a lot of the same stuff from Flacco, but I do think it'll fit a little better for him stylistically. But I don't think we should be expecting some stellar season from Joe at this age and this sort of stage he's at. So a lot of similar aspects. The question is, can he reel in? Can he cut down the mistakes by 25% or so and play, like a 75%, 25% good, bad version of that? So if he can and find a little bit more consistency throughout each game, and if he starts 10 games, it's hard to envision Joe starting every game this year. That would be, maybe a nice outcome if you got a young quarterback and you're trying to be patient, but hard to envision that just because of the nature of the NFL's, schedule and how long things are and all of that stuff. So what I would say is a little bit more fit than Kenny is for what Kevin likes to do offensively, a little bit more risk reward there, but certainly a guy with a lot of experience, and we know did well with this locker room and commands respect in a good way too.
So and another thing that you did on BrownsFilmBreakdown.com, 5 mistakes the Browns must avoid making in the 2025 NFL Draft. Take us through those.
Yeah, so I there's some things I just have opinions on, and I wanted to kind of lay out those mistakes that I'm worried about them making in this upcoming draft. So the first one is basically that I don't think that they should reach for a quarterback. I think if you're reaching for a quarterback too high, if you don't think there's a guy there after the second overall pick that makes sense at the second overall pick, then don't take him, right? If there's not a guy there at 2, but you want to trade to 15, then you should probably just take him at 2. So it's just a proper realization of what you think this quarterback is worth. And then, I don't think they should be trading up several picks, giving up premium picks like 67 or 94 to go up and get a quarterback in the first round. They need all 4 of those picks in the first 3 rounds to bolster some position rooms that are really weak. So I think you're staying at 33, perhaps moving up 1 pick or 2 to the end of the first round to maybe get that 5th year because you want it. But that for me is a spot where I just don't think you should be reaching for a quarterback. Like I said, if you think a guy is worth trading up to 15, then why don't you just trade down a couple spots into the 4 or 6 spot and take him at those spots and make sure you get the guy and maybe add a couple more picks to try to maybe replicate Travis Hunter in the aggregate. That's kind of the way I would view it. Running back at 33, I think is too high. I think the class is too deep, and I think there still should be a targeting of valuable, more premium positions. So I'm more apt or open to running back in the their early third, late third round pick or early fourth round pick. I think you can get a really talented running back at that spot. Obviously, pair him with a running back maybe late in the draft, and one of your, the Browns have 3 picks, 192 and beyond. Maybe packaging those picks, moving up, or getting a UDFA. So I'm not going running back at 33. I am not taking Tyler Shuck. No offense to Tyler. I just don't think his age, injury history, and some of the concerns in the film, I'm not taking him until at least the 3rd round. I would prefer the late 3rd round pick personally, in that 90s range, but I could say confidently I would not go higher than pick 67. I think that's too soon. I think, again, the risk factors in the tape with how he handles pressure, with like I said, a guy who's going to be 26 years old during the season, and then the injury stuff too. It's just too much to risk moving that spot to pick 33 to take that player, or as some have hinted, maybe even moving into the late 1st round. I find that hard to believe. Another thing I don't want to do is overextend at tight end. I think there's some really quality tight ends in the middle 3rd round to late round. So I'm not open. I'm open to it at 33 if maybe like Colston Loveland is there, but I don't want to overextend at that position, because really my theory here is that's David's here a couple years more at minimum. And that's a position that maybe is getting on the field for 40 to 50% of snaps. Now injuries can happen, and you kind of take it with a grain of salt, because you can't really bank on injuries happening. But I would say that's a position that is at the baseline not going to play a ton. So I don't want to overextend unless I see a really valuable player there at 33 that is going to change the dynamic of my offense. So I think you can get the Harold Fannons, Elijah Arroyo types in the middle rounds, that 3rd round pick, maybe late 3rd or early 4th, that could help you out at that position. So I'm not overextending at tight end. And then the last one is don't make multiple late 6th and 7th round picks. They have 3 picks from 192 and beyond. Actually, I think they have 4 selections pick 192 and beyond. I'm packaging those picks to move up at some spot in the draft, maybe taking 2 of those and making them a 6th round pick in this draft, or taking a 7th rounder and making it a 6th round the following year. I don't think 4 picks 192 and beyond is going to help your team this year. So use those as assets for other places in the draft to move up, or use them as assets to get better picks in the following season. That's the way I would view it.
All right, before I let you go, let's take a look. One of the things you do is film breakdown. We love when you do that. We're going to take a look. You did this, brownsfilmbreakdown.com, Travis Hunter. So we'll take a look at a little bit of this and get your thoughts on Travis Hunter. What do you see when you look at him?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's a wide receiver. I talked about it on the pod yesterday, a wide receiver who can play some corner. I mean, he's the best at 2 positions in this draft, and I think, again, it's as simple as figuring out the fit for him on both sides. I think the Browns are open to it. Travis has mentioned it as recently as 2 days ago about he wants to play both ways. So it's really just a matter of figuring out how it works for the offense and defense. I think he's an offense predominantly first player. I think that's where he can make the most difference. And then I think if you keep things simple on the defensive side for him and let him play a specific role, he's going to have a defined difference in impact to be made on the defensive side of the football too. So unique athlete, a unicorn of sorts here who can play both ways, proved it at the major college level. And I think there's still, in my opinion, a lot of room for improvement. A guy who's not capped when he gets in the league, I think can make a difference right away, because I think the body control, hands, ball tracking ability, all of that is very unique in an early part of his career. And then when you layer in kind of getting more and more adept at the nuances of the position, I think that's where you see him get even better at just wide receiver, let alone putting him out there and playing defense in a way. And I think the Browns, way of structuring their defense, it is going to yield an opportunity for him to play more reactionary football over there, not be caught thinking too much, and just play his coverage skills that I think mesh really well with what Jim Schwartz likes to do. So I think the appeal is immense for Cleveland, and I think it's a great fit with an organization that seems open to letting him play both ways in a way that maybe others would not. So I couldn't be more excited about that fit.
When you look at him, what's the upside? Does he have the ability to be top 10, top 5, top whatever wide receiver? And is he a guy, if you get the ball in his hands, he can make things happen?
Yeah, of course. He plays the game at a different speed, I think, at times. And he's got that stop-start twitch ability stuff that makes him so unique and dangerous after the catch. So to the root of your question, I think the ceiling is a top 5 wide receiver. Certainly. I think he can get there. I think he's got all the tools necessary. It's refining the craft, getting better at that position. I think he can. I think he will. From everything you hear about him, a very smart guy, goal-oriented, focused, loves football, all the stuff you want to hear. So I think that there's a reasonable expectation as a top 10 wide receiver and a top 15 corner. And then it's, to me, like, I think the ceiling for the kid at 22 years old right now, by the time he's 26, 27, is like he is a top 5 wide receiver who can play some defense for you too as he gets older in the league. So I think you're probably going to see him doing more early because he's young and the legs are fresh and all of that. But as he ages and I think he gets better, I saw a Chad Johnson comparison, which I thought was really interesting. Obviously, Chad had a lot of really good years in Cincinnati. I think there's a lot of similarities there in terms of just the sheer size and sort of the way aesthetically they move. I think Chad's a more refined route runner in his time in the NFL. That doesn't mean Travis can't get there, but that's something Chad had over him kind of at this point. But Travis is a much more explosive athlete, much more explosive, just like the nuance of, the short shuttle, the quick explosion drills, those in vertical jump, broad jump, all those things that sort of tell you how explosive you are. I think that's where he is more gifted. So he's got a lot as a baseline more to work with there to be better. So if you look at kind of what Chad was able to do in the league, and if you can get that as a wide receiver, maybe even uptick it a little bit along with a guy who can help impact your defense, it's just something you haven't found that in the NFL before. So I think that's the biggest reason I'm interested. I think baseline wise, he's going to be a great receiver, could be one of the league's best receivers. But then you get into that territory of Shohei Ohtani hit 50 home runs and stole 50 bases, but he could also maybe go out and win you 15 games as a starting pitcher. That's where it's this is unicorn type stuff. So let's just get in that business and see if it's there, because the fallback is he's great at just one position, and ultimately that's worth a really high draft pick. So if you do get both, that's pretty fun too.
Jake Burns, BrownsFilmBreakdown.com. As always, great stuff. Make sure you check him out. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jake.
Thanks, guys.
That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. No show tomorrow because of the holiday weekend. We will see you back here Monday at 4 o'clock. It is NFL Draft Week. Have a great weekend. See you Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.